All right, we're going to do part 2 of our bubble map notes. We just finished George Washington. We're going to move on to John Adams now. John Adams, as we all know, is our second president. Okay, he served one term. Do you remember why he served one term? Didn't want to go to war. With France. Okay, remember France was not being very friendly to us. They were impressing our soldiers, anyway, so that's why he only got one term, because they're like, listen, if you're not gonna be the president and commander in chief that we need, then we will vote you out, and they did. He was political party association was a Federalist. Okay. Remember, this is the first time that a change or the first time that a political party has kind of been in charge of the presidency. Washington did not associate himself with political parties, even though he leaned toward a Federalist. And John Adams was definitely a Federalist. Some major events here in John Adams' presidency was the Xyz Affair is the first one. Okay, remember that the French are attacking American ships. The French keep attacking. You know I had to do it. And that's one reason why we wanted to go to war, is because we were tired of France, capturing our ships and impressing our soldiers and our sailors. Impressment of sailors, and they would capture our ships, take our ships, and we were losing money because of it. Was a big reason, and then we were losing our fellow Americans, and so John Adams was pressured into going to war. He did not want to go to war. He wanted to, like Washington, stay neutral in these foreign affairs. He didn't want to go to war that he thought was unnecessary. And so he sent representatives to meet with the French foreign minister. So we met with X, Y, and Z. X, Y, and Z demanded a bribe to even meet with the foreign minister. They were just representatives of that minister, and they demanded a bribe to meet with them, and so we would not pay that bribe. The saying that we had about this, do you remember in that little cartoon, those three guys would say, "Millions for defense." Do you remember that? Millions for defense. Not 1 cent for tribute. And remember, they mean that we will dump millions and millions of dollars into defending our country, but we are not even going to pay 1 cent for a bribe or for tribute. Okay? So millions for defense, not 1 cent for tribute. And so the XYZ affair was just that. It was a time where we wanted to negotiate, and we weren't allowed to negotiate, and then further negotiations led to kind of a peaceful agreement. Okay, I'm going to put the word negotiate here. Negotiate peace. Okay, between America and France. Okay, that's the XYZ affair. Let's talk about the Alien and Sedition Act. The Alien and Sedition Act. These acts, I'm going to put the Alien Act over here. Alien Act. Remember, if you were a dangerous foreign citizen in the United States, a dangerous foreigner, you could be kicked out. So if you were dangerous, could be kicked out. If you were dangerous, you could be kicked out. Okay? And then the Sedition Act. The Sedition Act said that if you speak bad against the government, so you can't talk or print bad things about the government, you could be fined or put in jail. And remember, John Adams did this to control some of those Democratic Republican newspaper editors. And so the Alien Sedition Acts, I'm going to turn my paper to the side a little bit so we can use this side. Remember, they were met with the Virginia and Kentucky resolutions. And the Virginia and Kentucky resolution said you can nullify or cancel a law. Okay? So they were trying to nullify and cancel the Alien and Sedition Act because they thought it was unconstitutional. Unconstitutional. I just abbreviated that for you. Okay? Unconstitutional. And a lot of people were saying, you know, they violate the First Amendment rights. Especially this Sedition Act. It violates the First Amendment rights. Okay? Violates the First Amendment rights. The next thing about John Adams, I'm going to have to put this actually on the back of the page, is the Midnight Judges. So let's see. John Adams is right here. So we'll put the Midnight Judges about right here. Midnight Judges. And the Midnight Judges, remember this is under Adams. Okay, so that's under Adams. And the Midnight Judges were last minute judicial appointments. Okay, remember they were the last minute judges that were going to be part of the Supreme Court, and Adams had kind of a list of people who he wanted to make a judge, and one of those peoples was William Marbury. William Marbury. Okay? So William Marbury, remember the story, was told he was going to be a judge. Was told he was going to be a judge. Then his appointment papers were somehow lost. His appointment papers were somehow lost, and he wasn't. Okay? He wasn't allowed to be a judge. Of course, he's upset about this because he wants his job, and so he sues James Madison, who's the Secretary of State at the time. Sues James Madison because he wants his job. Okay, he wants his job. He was told he deserves this job. And if you look upside down here, that is John Marshall. And John Marshall decides this case, the case of Marbury versus Madison. Okay. What year was Marbury versus Madison? 1803. 1803. What did Marbury versus Madison establish? Judicial review. Okay, and remember that is checking a law's constitutionality. Is it constitutional? Is it unconstitutional? What is it? Okay. What other cases did, speaking of John Marshall, what other cases did he decide that are important to us? Maryland versus Mcculloch. That should be an H. Maryland versus Mcculloch. And then Gibbons versus Ogden. Okay. In Maryland versus Mcculloch, the decision or the significance of this is what? States can't tax federal institutions. And the significance of Gibbons versus Ogden is Congress regulates interstate trade. Okay, so Congress regulates interstate trade. So 3 important court cases around John Marshall. And just to remember a couple notes, he was the longest serving Chief Justice, and he was very influential. Remember, his nickname could be the measuring stick, okay? Because everybody else is measured against him. Okay, good deal. That is John Adams, and we'll go to part 3 in a second.